Hi, and welcome to Twin Cities Real Estate Rhetoric. My name is Tom Summers, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Tovi Muma.
Hello.
Hello, Tovi. We are both licensed real estate agents in the state of Minnesota. We predominantly work in the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area. So if you're listening to us via Skype or, I don't know, iTunes or YouTube or wherever, welcome. We are so happy you're here. We hope that the time that you spend with us will be educational and also entertaining. The purpose for this webcast is to provide you with information, whether you're a buyer or seller. We're going to be covering different topics every week to help you understand more about what we do as real estate agents and how we can help you, and also just answer basic questions for you, whether you're buying or selling a house.
Right.
So I've been in the business now for a little over 11 years. I've been with Edina Realty the whole time, licensed agent, and before that I did flip some houses, and I had a few other careers as well. Tovi, please tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how long you've been doing this.
I have been in the real estate business since 2007. Started with Edina Realty, and just love the business. And yeah, I can't see myself doing anything else. So
good. And you work with buyers and sellers, correct?
I work with buyers and sellers.
Okay.
Yes.
So between the two of us, then that's almost 16 years worth of history here and knowledge that we're going to be sharing with you. We actually are coworkers. We work across the hall from one another, and we were just kind of sitting around one day and thought, hey, let's do this. We thought it might be kind of fun. Hopefully, like I said, it'll be entertaining and educational for you. So let's dive right into this. And the first subject today is going to be how to purchase a home. A question a lot of people want to answer to. They want just basic information, so we're going to try and just give you the highlights. The very first thing I'm going to say is choose a realtor. So I know what's coming with this, Tovi. Most people are probably hanging up on us right now or switching to a different website. Please don't.
Please don't.
We actually have value, believe it or not. I know that with all of the information that we give you now as agents, you as a home buyer or seller can search for hours. I mean, you found us and you're watching this. But we're ready to step in to help you when it gets to the point where you need help. So, Tovi, can you tell everybody a little bit about what it is that we do and how we can help them, whether they're buying or selling?
Right. Well, there's many facets. People, it's not just going online and checking out what's property is available and then calling a telephone number and saying, can I see the property? There's so many different variables that come into play with anything you're searching for, any single property that you go to. There's a lot of information that realtors have that the general public does not have to assist them with the process. And along with that is just our years of knowledge and dealing with it on a day-to-day basis.
So I find when I'm working with a buyer, I'll start sometimes working with a buyer for almost a year before they're ready to purchase. And it usually starts out with just a phone call and some basic information, setting up some specific search engines for them. And that's not something we'll go into today, but there's a lot to know about the searches and how search engines work and how different websites are effective and not effective.
Right.
Are you in the same boat with your buyers? Do you have a tendency to work with them for quite some time before you physically show them?
I do, yeah. Sometimes there's people that it's like, I just want to see what's out there. I want to see if this is something I'm, considering doing. And I'll set them up with with a search engine, and just, from there we can define what they're really looking for. And a lot of people, they may not be ready to purchase a property financially.
Right.
So I'll give them a name of somebody that they can deal with. They can tell them how to put things together in place so that they are ready in a year or so to purchase a house.
Great, and that's a perfect lead into the second thing that we would talk about, which is getting a pre-approval. The most important thing about this is that you have to know what you can purchase. To me, it doesn't matter whether you're buying $1 million home or you're buying a $50,000 condo, but I also don't want to show you houses that don't fit your criteria, not only from a dollar standpoint, but also from room sizes and square footage and all that other stuff.
Right.
So by going to a loan officer and speaking with them about where you're at and getting a rough idea, not only are you going to be comfortable with your payments, but you'll know what you can purchase.
Right. And that obviously helps a great deal. I know that I've had clients in the past that say, hey, no problem, I can get pre-approved. I can get pre-approved like that. But the thing is that unless you have that letter, unless you've gone through the process with your bank, had them pull up your information and say, yes, we can provide you, with a mortgage in, a certain amount, unless you have that piece of paper and have actually gone through that process, you basically can't put together a purchase agreement.
Right, and there's a lot of buyers too that don't understand this one particular fact, is that as a listing agent, and I'm sure you do this as well, when I have multiple offers on a property or a single offer on a property, I will look at that pre-approval, go over it with my sellers, and I'll turn around and I'll call that loan officer to verify the information. They're not going to share anything with me of a personal nature, but I just want to make sure that the letter is what it says. Have you physically looked at their finances, W-2s, and all the other things that they need to look at to get a pre-approval? So it does put you a step ahead against your competition, especially in a multiple offer, scenario.
Exactly.
Third one would be refining your focus. So, at this point I'm looking at it like, all right, I've met with this client and we're going to work together, and this person has gotten, or couple has gotten the pre-approval, so we're ready to go. I still think there's another step that a lot of agents miss, which is refining the focus and actually sitting down and having a conversation with that client to say, hey, what do you guys want? Now that you know what you can afford, what else is important to you? Number of bedrooms, area, that sort of thing. How do you kind of go about it, Toby?
Well, I just like to, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just say, let's just pick some properties, go look at them. Pick some general properties, go take a look at them. As I'm out with the people, I ask questions, and I can get a better sense of what they're really wanting after you go see a couple properties. Then after we go out and see a couple properties, we can come back to the office and just kind of say, okay, it looks to me like you're looking more like you're wanting a one-level house versus a split entry. You're wanting this more than that, and just kind of really refine it from there, and actually do the refining in front of them, and they can see, how we're coming up with new properties.
Yeah, and there's other things that we can add to that a lot of people may not be aware of, is that we can make you very aware of foundation size, which is overlooked on a regular basis. The reason that this is important is if I'm showing you 2 stories, for instance, and everything that we're looking at is under 1,000 foundation size, then you pretty much know if that feels too small, there's no reason to look at anything under 1,000 square feet or 1,200 or whatever the number is, just to kind of narrow that search in again. Because the worst thing you can do is look at a number of properties that don't suit you and then miss something that does because you were looking at the wrong place.
Exactly.
So that also leads into the next point we want to make here, which is viewing the properties. One of the best things that I can offer you when I'm showing you these properties after I help you figure out what you're looking at is I always use the best rule, meaning that when we go and look at 5 houses, 10 houses, at the end of the day, I want you to pick one that you have to buy of that group. Now, I don't mean physically purchase it, but there has to be one, even if they're all mediocre. What's the best one of that day? So that then the next time we go out and look at a bunch of houses, we have to say, all right, is there anything better now today than that best one the last time?
I
think this is so important to do, because if you don't use this practice, they all start to look alike after about 10, don't you think?
Exactly, they do. And nowadays it seems like buyers, you go out and see a lot more properties. Properties are limited, but you still go out and see a lot more properties.
Well, yeah, and I just think it's smart to do, because it just makes the process easier. Because after a while, you can't remember, okay, which one had that bigger backyard, which one backed up to the park, and which one had the huge master suite. And this is going to help you, and it's going to define things for you. So to answer the question I get a lot from buyers of, well, how many do we look at? There's no indicator. I mean, some people literally look at 1 and other people look at 50. So it just depends.
And one thing I do want to say too is everybody, or not everybody, but I'll have buyers say, are we ever going to find a house? Are we ever going to find it? Guarantee you do. I have never had a client, that walks away and says, we just couldn't find anything. You'll walk into something and you'll know it's what you want when you're there. And if it takes 100 properties, if it takes 50, if it takes 1, could be the very first one you look at too. No idea.
Yeah, and that's a great point too. I guess I never thought about it that way, but I've never had anyone either that hasn't found something and ended up finding the right fit, because it does work out for a reason. The next one would be to make an offer. So let's say we've shown you a bunch of properties. We get to the point now where you're ready to write an offer. What that consists of is, before the negotiation, is what we do is we sit down with you and go over everything, comps, average sale price per square foot, looking at averages within 2 miles and all the other things that go into it. And so you're not going to be left alone on an island thinking, all right, well, what do I offer? Is this a fair price? Is it not? Do I need to drop it? Do I need to add whatever? We're going to give you a lot of really good information that's timely information to help you figure out where to start from your offer price. How do you walk people through that, Toby?
Well, what I do is he'll say we're out looking at a property. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the one I want. We'll come back to the office and I will actually pull comps. Anything that's sold very similar to that property in the last 2 months, what's sold, print it out and actually look at it and compare it to the property that that they're looking to put a purchase agreement on. Okay. And not only do we look at those numbers, but you also look at upgrades that the properties have had. There's so many different things, but you put in all these factors, look at tax records, look at market info, put together all these factors, give it to my buyers, and they can make the decision from there as to what they feel is a decent offer.
Well, and I want to say I've worked with you for quite some time, and I've watched you in action, and it's true. She's very, very detail-oriented, as am I. And we're also out-of-the-box thinkers, so we're also thinking ahead. So we're going to give you more than one scenario because we're always going to plan for the idea that there could be multiple offer where you're going to have other people offering. So we want to have 2 or 3 different scenarios so then at the very last minute when you make the decision to write, you'll have the best information at that time to decide which way you want to proceed.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so nice you're welcome. No, you're welcome.
Across the hall from each other.
Well,
we hear each other, and then it's like, oh, what did you just say? What'd you just do?
That's true. We share a lot of ideas, which is important too, because I think everyone can learn from everybody. So moving forward with that too, then so when you were negotiating, which would be the next step, when you're negotiating the purchase, that is everything, meaning that everything is negotiable. So it's not just about price. You have no idea at that point what that seller's motivation is, or if you're a seller, what the buyer's motivation is. So it could be more than just price. It could be terms of a closing date or a financing issue or whatever. So I also want people to know that when we're working on these purchase agreements, we, both of us, will walk through with you every single line of the purchase agreement, whether you're a seller or you're a buyer. So before you sign anything or you do any kind of a counter, you fully well know exactly what it is that you're signing and where those key points in that contract are from a negotiation standpoint. Now, we'll never give you legal advice. And I would always encourage you, if you ever have any legal questions, to talk with a real estate attorney to answer those questions, but we can at least guide you and give you some insight into different things. Most of the purchase agreements are pretty standard. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
That the attorney stuff falls more into the foreclosures, which is a topic we can talk about another day. But the negotiations, another question I get asked, I don't know if you hear this a lot, Tovi, is people say, well, how long is it going to take? And it's like, well, the answer is it's going to take as long as it's going to take.
Right.
Some people can put a purchase agreement together in a matter of hours, and some people want to, spread it out or nickel and dime, and it can take 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes you have to walk away. For a month and come back.
And then come back. Yep, exactly. And we've all done, all of those.
Patience is a virtue, I think.
Right, most definitely.
So again, it's just like anything else. There's nothing concrete. You just have to roll with it as it happens.
And one good point that you made too was just the price. It's not always price that is the determining factor. It's not just, we got to get the best price. It's price and date and closing costs and appliances and a warranty, and so there's so many different things.
God, we've got an awful lot of stuff to cover, don't we? So we try not to go into too much detail, just for you, the listener, so you know it, unless we're on a specific topic. So you can also look on our websites for different blogs and more information about these different things as well. But we will be covering things as we go. So let's say we negotiate things out and we've come to an agreement with a purchase agreement with the buyer and seller. The next step then would be to have a home inspection. Tovi, where do you start with that? What do you say?
Well, I have a couple different inspectors that I have used in the past that clients of mine have had good luck with and really enjoy. But basically, you can choose to have an inspection or not to have an inspection. I always say have an inspection. And even if it's a brand new, house that's maybe 6 months old or a year old, I would still have an inspection because it's not only to have somebody look through the house and everything, but it's for them to bring you through the house so you can see how things run. and things you need to monitor and check on, and etc.
Yeah, it's not just looking for something that's bad. It's also teaching you how to, basically,
Change the furnace filter.
yeah, run your new house. And the other thing I want to say off of that is that at least in the state of Minnesota, so you have to check if you're out of state, you do not have to be licensed to be an inspector. So either one of us could be an inspector. We wouldn't do a very good job for you because that's not our expertise. But you want to work with someone that has a building background or is an engineer, something like that. And we have names of people that do this for a living, that have been doing it for 20 years, who are just absolutely phenomenal at their job. The last thing you want to do is just to open up the yellow pages and pick somebody there.
Right, exactly.
Because you just don't know what you're going to get. You got to get someone with the tools and the education and the experience to make sure that they catch everything, because they're not going to be liable.
No.
So if you miss something major, you're pretty much stuck.
Right.
So it's important, very important step. And that's going to run you probably, $350, $400?
Yeah, exactly.
So not real expensive.
Yeah, no.
So let's say you get to the point where you've had the inspection now and the buyers are happy and the sellers are happy because we're moving forward. Then other than all the financing stuff, which we won't go through today because we're not loan officers, we're just real estate agents, we're going to step to the next one, which would be doing your final walkthrough, which typically happens, 48 to 72 hours, and sometimes the day of the closing.
Right, exactly. And that is the buyer's chance to take a walk through the property, make sure that, everything is still in place as it was when you looked at the property. Blinds, appliances, those types of things. Make sure that everything, looks good before you're actually going to the closing.
Yeah. So some of them are going to be just a routine visit. That exactly what Tovi said. And then the other thing too is if you had anything that was in the purchase agreement that the sellers agreed to fix, that all of that stuff is done. So typically, the agents who have the houses listed that are on the ball will always provide the buyer agents with different types of receipts ahead of time, say, hey, this has been completed and all of that. But if you have someone where the agent maybe isn't doing that, you want to make sure you get in there a day or so before just to make sure that everything is completed the way it's supposed to.
Right.
Because once you close on the house and you own it, it's much harder to have something corrected that should have been taken care of before. So again, our value is that we know the process, and we are not going to allow you to get yourself stuck in a bad situation. So we're going to do what we need to resolve whatever issues might come, might arise during that process.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so we do the final walkthrough, and let's say everything is good and everyone's happy, and again, the house looks like it should. So the next step would be to go to the closing.
Yep, to the final closing.
Okay, now the closing usually takes place at a real estate company. There is going to be a closer and a title company for the buyer, and a closer and a title company for the seller. So typically the people that are at the closing would be the seller and their closing agent, the buyer and their closing agent, as well as both real estate agents for the two sides.
Right.
And sometimes the loan officer will show up.
Yep,
and
the buyer.
And you sit on the opposite sides of the table and you sign documents.
Right.
What do you need to bring?
You need to bring your driver's license. First thing they're going to do when you walk in is bring your driver's license. They'll take a copy of it. And if you're the seller, bring your keys, garage door openers, whatever.
Perfect. Yeah. No, that's good. That's a good point to make.
Buyer, just be ready to get it all and be on your way.
Well, and from a buyer and seller perspective too, this is an awful lot to be throwing at people, but we also depend on absolutely wonderful people throughout this whole process, from the loan officers down to their processors to the closing company and the title company and all the title people. So we will make sure that we have you on a schedule. That's the other thing, is both of us are very systematic, and we'll make sure that everything gets done, so you don't have to worry about any last minute issues. Case in point is that they are changing a lot of the different things now, where a lot of title companies are requiring that if a buyer brings money to closing, or a seller, depending on the situation, that the money is wired from their account to the title company. They can't just walk in with a check.
Right.
So you'll have all that information in plenty of time to take care of everything you need to with the bank.
Right.
So again, our goal is to get you from A, which is the very beginning of the process of finding a search for you or getting your home listed, to closing successfully, closing on time, and either handing you the money for the sale of your house and your proceeds, or handing you your keys so you can move in.
Very well said, Tom.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the last thing is the move-in date. Now, this sounds kind of probably a little screwy to some people, like, well, duh, of course you move in after you buy it. But I thought that this was probably worth mentioning when Toby and I were talking about this, because move-in means something different, and it always has to do with that contract. So you got to go back to the contract, and did it say, yes, you're moving in immediately after close, or was there any kind of other stipulation?
Being 24 hours after close, 48 hours after close.
And the big one is for foreclosures, is that they will want you, the banks will want you to say at funding. And I want to clarify this because it's amazing how many buyers I've run into where the agents never even bothered to tell them this. And if you take away nothing else from this today, the one thing I want you to remember is if you want to buy a foreclosure, you cannot move into the house until the property has funded, meaning that when you close on the property, that HUD has to go back to the bank, which they're going to compare with the HUD that they got right before closing. When they've looked at both of them and say, yes, they match, the money is right, they'll sign off on it, and then you get the keys. So another systematic thing that we do, or strategic thing that we would do for you, is setting up a closing like in the morning, early in the week, never the last day of the month, things like that, to get you in that first day, because it can take up to 3 business days.
For them to approve everything. That is right.
So we also want to help you avoid any nightmares, because your nightmares become ours.
And I was
ahead.
going to say one thing that just happened with the property of mine. It was a lender-owned property, and we had the closing. The buyer went to the property the next day, and they had not turned the water back on. Or they had, and stuff like that. And every bank is different.
Yep.
I've had banks where they're like, oh yeah, they turn the water on, they make sure everything is on. Because the day before when we did the final walkthrough, it was. But then they went in and they turned it off. And so we had to go, so it's kind of funny. There's so many things like that can come up that are just, you have no idea.
Absolutely. So, we always get surprised, but we try to keep everything to a minimum. So that's about all we have for you today. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to this today. Please tell your friends, anyone that you know that might be interested in real estate, send them a link. And if you can make it to our Facebook page, which is Twin Cities Real Estate Rhetoric, hit the like button, leave a comment, let us know how we're doing. Tell us if we're boring you. Tell her, tell Toby if she should fire me. Whatever you need to do. We want you to be involved in this, and hopefully we've helped you. So thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
And we will see you again real soon. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.